There are 5 simple steps to help you move forward and make progress in your life towards your dreams and your goals. And there are also 5 reasons why you haven't been able to make progress towards them. And in this video, I'm going to share with you what those are, what are the blocks, and the things that are preventing you from getting to where you want to be in your life and creating life, your divine life that you divinely deserve. But also, I'm going to talk with you on 5 steps that you can actually take to move forward. And this is not going to be the, you know, typical goal setting thing, but it's going to be a little bit more deeper and spiritual. So let's dive in. So, the first, one of the main reasons why I see people, and even something that I used to struggle in my own life, of not moving towards your goals or create a life that you want is, I think this is one of the number one reasons, is trauma and core wounding, and not being able to handle it and letting it do so much that you no longer are living for yourself, or you're no longer moving forward and creating the life you want because these traumatic experiences or just course are have become a part of your personality and have become a part of how you even operate in the world. And so a lot of the times when we aren't handling the trauma that we experience on a day-to-day or healing it, it can really prevent us from moving forward towards what we want. The second block or thing that really prevents people from creating, moving towards their goals and dreams is actual state of learning rather than implementing. And a lot of this time, be another perspective of this is being very logical minded and very where you sort of addicted to learning or addicted to consuming and not addicted to not addicted but not producing, right? And so part of the human experience that we've come to explore and traverse is not only to experience learning and growth of the mind and using article minds and growing ideas and ideating with people and producing from the level of thought, but a lot of times we struggle to bring it down 3D reality, which is very important. So it's one thing to know something mentally and intellectually versus actually doing it and living it and being it and embodying it. So you can know that to change a habit, you have to do something different, but that doing something different is the actual embodiment of it, right? You can know that, your goal is to XYZ fill in the blank. But if you aren't doing the work in order to move you towards that goal, then you're not going to see any results. So part of that is the three, implementing and operating the 3D, bringing down what divinely downloaded into your subconscious mind, or even from your soul and higher self perspective, is moving that into the body and moving that into embodying what you now know mentally, right? And so that's another block that I see that people have oftentimes, you know, don't see progress towards their goals and desires and their dreams, as they aren't implementing. They're learning, or they might grow intellectually, but they're not implementing and they're not being it, right? They're not becoming who they desire. And then another thing is really being stuck in this mode of not reprogramming yourself, right? One of the things that you have to understand, you're achieving or moving towards a different desire, or you're moving towards goals and dreams, a part of your old self has to die. And I say that, and this is one of the hardest parts that I think that people struggle with, apart from the whole trauma thing that I mentioned before, is when you are moving towards your desires and your dreams and goals, a new version of you is now online, and you're able to access that new version of you. If you think of it as like moving from parallel reality to parallel reality, different versions of you exist. A lot of times we become so attached and to our current version of ourselves that we're not willing to move into a new version of ourselves. And part of you, the version of you that exists in this now moment, needs to die, because that version of you, there's parts of you in this now moment that is preventing you from moving into the version as what you desire. You see what I'm saying? And so all of that is to say, A lot of times we're not doing the subconscious reprogramming work that is necessary to shift to our preferred reality, right? So that's another block. And another block that I noticed is being self-identified with the limited version of yourself, right? So one of the biggest things that I see and notice just helping people to actualize themselves is they are identified with a version of themselves that fits into a societal programming or familial programming. And a lot of times what this means is that they are, it's very similar to the other one, but different in the sense that you're attached to your identity and who you think you have to be. There's like this fear of letting go of the old version of yourself because there's fear of being an outcast, there's fear of not fitting in, there's fear of not being loved, there's fear of being judged, there's fear of success, fear of failure, and all that stuff, right? And so a lot of times we have this addiction, a limited version of ourselves, because the greater version of ourselves or this new identity, right, that presents itself calls us to be more, calls us to step into a version of ourselves that we aren't familiar with. And so it can feel scary. The unfamiliar oftentimes is very scary to our human brains because, if you go just our little critter brains that exist is designed to keep us safe, right? And so if that version of ourselves, if our minds, certain parts of our and our ego and our emotions are designed to keep us safe, that doesn't mean that it's not really conducive to growth, if you see what I'm saying. So there's safety in staying with the tried and true, but does that tried and true allow for growth, right? And so those are really the main things that really block you from really moving towards your desires and goals. I'll do a recap, which is trauma and core. The other one is being in a perpetual state of learning rather than implementing and embodying. The third one is not really doing the subconscious programming work and being able to step into new belief systems and ways of thinking, and really just holding on to your identity and not being willing to step into the unknown and releasing the fears that are blocking you, right, from moving forward, and releasing the ideas, and releasing old programming, and also being able to be willing to go against the grain. A lot of times living your dream life and creating the life that you want will go against societal programming, or sometimes will go against familial expectations. And so there is, that fear, these fears of, not fitting in, or, being an outcast or looked at differently will come up, right? And they are valid because there is this schism when you are shifting to a different reality. And let's say your familiar structure or your family or friends are used to you being in a certain way, and you start moving into a different version. There's going to be some chasm here, some schism here, right? There's not going to be, often don't like change, right? And so a lot of times you will get pushback, right? And a lot of times that's reflecting your own beliefs, and it's sort of like this hero journey that we go on that is necessary, right? You hear the call, and then you face the trials and tribulations, but usually the trials and tribulations in the hero's journey is that breaking away from family, away from the tried and true, breaking away from the known and moving into the unknown. And that's sort of the necessary part of the hero's journey that you must embark on in order to get to the other side, and in order to achieve the goals, reach the destination, reach the new version of yourself, right? So a lot of times some of the myths that sort of hold people back, that people think is actually preventing them, that they have moral failings, right? Or there's this idea that being morally correct, a lot of times this really is very conditioned within your familial structures, where we're very much so focused in on family and bringing them with us. I remember really struggling with this in the beginning of my spiritual awakening journey, and wanting everyone to wake up, wanting everyone to see, how freedom was already here, and how, all this other stuff that I had awakened to in my spiritual journey. And one of the things that we don't recognize is that sometimes you cannot, oftentimes, most often not, you can't bring your friends and family with you, right? Because they're on their own journey, right? And you have to be willing to let them go to move into a higher state of consciousness that will then redactively actually help them, because the more that you move into the powerful version of you, you are actually liberating them. But you don't see that in the beginning. You just, I'm moving away from what's known. I'm moving away from the people who've, supported and brought me up for over, decades, and now I'm moving into this new unknown territory all by myself. And it's a scary process, but it's necessary. And there's this need, moral failings that often people think it is. It's not really what it is. It's not you being immoral to, in a way, it is sort of being immoral in the sense that you're no longer prioritizing what you've been brought up to prioritize. You're prioritizing your soul's calling, your soul's mission above familial programming. You're prioritizing what you come to do on the planet above human conditioning, right? And so that schism is actually necessary, right? And it's actually, a lot of times it's really scary, but it's a necessary process into moving. And it's not saying that you're going to shun your family or you're going to let go of all your friends and stuff. Those could, depending on how, those dynamics actually work. But it's actually very important for you to move and answer the call, because only when you are moving in your true purpose and your true calling, your soul's calling and soul's purpose, can you actually then go back and help people. But you can't really help people, your loved ones, and the people that you love, if you're operating a limited version of who you're really meant to be. You see what I'm saying? So that's really, a myth, is moral failings. And then another myth that often happens is this sort of lack of willpower. There's a belief that, you just don't have the willpower to do what you called to do. And that may be it, but most often than not, it's not necessarily willpower, it's lack of inspiration. And the lack of inspiration that is happening is because you're not healing the old wounds and the core wounds and the trauma that you've experienced in your hood or in your earlier years, and you're letting that dictate your current reality. And so lack of willpower is usually, rarely ever, the case that people aren't going towards their desires, is because they don't feel inspired, or they are trapped by fear of the unknown, or fear of success, or fear of failure, right? Or the various other fears that there are. And then another myth that I often see that people buy into is this idea of being a bad person or bad character, being fundamentally flawed. Oh, I'm just messed up, or I'm just, XYZ, fill in the blank. I'm just selfish, or I'm just da da da. So, or, I'm just too caring, or whatever. And so those beliefs about who they are is actually preventing them from moving towards what they desire, right? So now that we talked about, what is actually preventing you from moving towards what you desire, let's talk about the actual, how to turn it around. What are the steps that you can take to turn it around, right? And one of the things I wanted to mention briefly is that trauma actually does create changes in your brain, right? And so when we don't heal trauma, when we don't do the work to overcome these sort of inner shadow aspects of ourselves, we don't move towards what we don't want. And an example I wanted to give here is the things that I used to struggle with, is having an aversion to my own creativity. Like, because growing up in a society where you're taught that being creative or being multi-passionate and blah blah blah, fill in the blank, is equals poverty, right? And so that was a belief system that I had to transform in my own life to start moving towards what I want, right? So how do you turn this around, right? Now we talked about the 4 to 5 things that are actually blocking us. The first one is to heal your trauma. First step is to heal your trauma and break through generational trauma and generational curses. And this oftentimes means going against the grain of societal programming and familial expectations, right? So you are in a family that, you grew up eating a certain way, a certain type of food. You always ate this way. This is sort of, you come together as a family, and as you commune and get together, you eat this certain way. But this way of eating has led to diabetes, heart disease, fill in the blank, right? All kinds of health issues, high blood pressure and stuff like that. And so as someone who feels called to do something different, maybe you start feeling maybe a call to being plant-based or something, right? Giving examples. And so in that being more plant-based, your family is going to feel that's, girl or boy, who do you think you are, like that? Put some meat on your plate and all, right? And you don't feel that call in that anymore. You feel like, no, I want to eat more plant-based because it feels like this is where my soul is leading me, and this is going to open a door, right? in that initial phase, you hear the call, right? Like in the hero's journey, you hear the call to do something different, and just simple as eating more plant-based, right? But you feel this trauma, or this generational attachment to that connection to your family. And so there's, what do, right? Do you follow the call, or do you stick with the way that you grew up, right? And that's just a basic example. It can have so many different ways. It can be like, you grew up in a family of doctors and feel this call to be an artist, right? Or you grew up in a family of artists and you feel this call to be a lawyer, right? Like, it can happen in different ways, right? But the thing is about healing the generational trauma. It can happen in relationships as well. Let's say, every person in your family always struggled with being alone. So you grew up in a family where you always had single mothers, right? And so you feel this call, or you feel this attraction to healing your relationships and your beliefs about men or beliefs about women, whatever. And so whatever that is that shows up, the call is you something more. You want to find a loving partner or a relationship, but everything in your family is, oh, you don't need a man, or you don't need anyone else to blah, blah, blah. Blank, that generational belief system and patterns that are happening, you have to do the work on healing and releasing it, right? You have to be the person in your generational line and your ancestral line to say, wait, raise your hand and say, I think this journey ends with me. It ends with me. And when you're willing to do that, then you will move into the next phase of your journey and move past this trial and tribulation and move into the version of you actualizing that healthy relationship, or actualizing eating healthier, or actualizing being whatever you want career wise. You know what I mean? So the first step is healing the trauma and breaking through generational patterns and generational belief systems, right? Healing your ancestral line by doing the work and saying, no, it ends here with me. I deserve, we all deserve, but we all deserve. And in order for me to be an example, is I have to say that it's okay for me to have the life that I want, right? Step 2 is deepen your connection with your soul, right? So this really means that you're developing an unshakable faith. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at my phone, I have a list here. You're developing unshakable faith and knowing in your ability to create the life you want, no matter the circumstances. So when you're deepening your connection with your soul, and if you're new to spirituality or creating spiritual practice, check out the first link box below. I have a free guide on the essentials to building a solid spiritual practice. But if you're new to this, you really want to start to deepen that connection to your intuition, right? It has to become an unshakable part of your unshakable sort of faith. You know how people have unshakable faith in certain things. People have unshakable faith in money or unshakable faith in whatever, right? But you want to start to develop such a strong inner knowing that what your heart is calling you to do, your soul, your intuition is guiding you to do, is what you're here to do, right? That voice has to be louder than any other voice outside of you, right? And this is very important because on your journey, you're going to, obstacles, challenges, or quote unquote setbacks, right? That's a part of the journey, right? So you got to let go of this idea that achieving your goals and dreams smooth sailing. A lot of times it can't be smooth sailing, but there's a part, life is this roller coaster ride, and that's a part of the journey. And the way you get through those roller coaster moments is by listening to your heart, listening to your soul, listening to your inner guidance and your intuition. And you have to start to cultivate the ways in which your intuition is speaking to you. So that's step number 2. And then step number 3 is learn, and most importantly, implement. So when you're on your journey of manifesting your desired reality, manifesting your dreams, manifesting your goals, you're going to learn things along the way. You're becoming a different version of you. You're going to learn different skill sets. Maybe if you're trying to become plant-based, now you're learning what foods to eat, what foods not to eat, what things to avoid, right? If you're learning a new career path, that comes with its own skill set, jargon, and stuff like that, right? But you have to start to implement these things and then surround yourself with people who are on that same journey, right? So definitely join me at Facebook/Divine Earth Community to join like-minded individuals if you're looking for a community of like-minded people. But you want this deep connection to your soul so that intuition is your compass, is your guide, no matter the circumstances, because there are going to be rough patches, and a lot of times it's just your belief systems coming up, showing you where you're attached to certain things, what belief systems are operating in your subconscious that are no longer in alignment with the version of you that you are now being called to step into, right? The third so that implementation of, you know, learning what you know and then becoming what you know, right? You can know something intellectually, but being it is the true knowing. When you're knowing something, it's different from knowing something intellectually. Knowing is embodiment. And so you really want to start embodying this new version of yourself. And then becoming a new version of yourself. That's step number 4, is reprogramming your beliefs to match this new version of yourself, right? So, like I said before, a lot of times we have old belief systems, societal programming, familiar programming, generational patterns that are guiding our day-to-day actions. And so you have to start to and mine these sort of beliefs, these lies that we tell ourselves that are actually preventing you from moving forward, and program yourself to what version of yourself, how would this version of me act if I had what I desired? One of the greatest questions me, what would I truly believe if I actually embodied and actually had exactly what I wanted? Would I believe this? You know, would I be acting this way? You know, would I see life through this lens, what belief systems, what thought processes, what emotional patterns would I have and embody in order to have what I desire? And once you really start to break this down and discover this, and if you need help, visit me at divineearthschool.com/call to receive help to see if working with me in a one-on-one capacity is for you. But when you start to do this deep work, you start to recognize that doing this inner work and understanding whether or not your belief systems are on point with who you desire to be is what's going to shift and do this reprogramming work that's necessary to start to embody this new version of you, right? And then the last step I would say is to prepare to really let go. And the reason why I say that is part of this journey, like I said, is breaking through generational patterns, breaking through generational trauma, breaking through generational curses, whatever you want to call it, right? And a lot of times it means letting go of friends or family ties or connections in the way that they were. Maybe it doesn't mean that you shun your family, but maybe you start interacting with your family in a different way. You keep your dreams to yourself because you notice every time you speak about your dreams or your desires to certain family members, they poo-poo on it. Not because they're just negative, or they could be negative, but it could be just because they see you in light, and now that you're moving into a different version, that version of you doesn't match up with the version that they know you to be, right? And so you things to yourself better. You start holding on to your dreams and holding your dreams sacred until to blossom into full-fledged embodiment, right? And so releasing and letting go means being able to let go of things, belief systems, and people and places that no longer serve, right? Maybe living in your area or living in where you live isn't vibrationally in alignment with who you are anymore. And maybe now it's time for you to move into a different area altogether. Maybe moving to a different country or moving to a different state or moving to a different city is more in vibrational alignment with this new version of yourself. So you have to be willing to take the steps in your life to live your dream, right? Often tells you to become a different version of yourself. And part of that is letting go of what no longer serves you, whether that's people, places, things, belief systems, or emotional patterns, right? So letting go of what no longer serves you, right? So those are really the 5 steps that you can take to turn around, moving towards what turn around these old belief systems and patterns that are breaking down and move you towards what you desire. Quick recap is heal your trauma and break through generational patterns, deepen your connection with your soul, which is to develop unshakable faith into your intuition and your heart's calling. Learn, and most importantly, implement, right? Number 4 is become a new version of yourself, which means to reprogram your mind, your beliefs to match your new version of yourself, to align with the new version of yourself. And number 5 is to prepare to release and let go, right? But be open to more aligned people, places, and situations, right? New ways of being, new emotional patterns as well. So I hope this video has been helpful. If it has, definitely give it a thumbs up and comment below of these, blocks that I mentioned before you might have struggled with, or which part of the journey you actually most resonate. Feel free to let me know in the comments below. As always, flow with what feels good and let go of what doesn't, because you are divine. You are a divine being, and your soul knows exactly what you've come to explore and experience while on this planet. And as always, if you're needing help, definitely check out the first link in the description box below, where I walk you through my free guide of building a solid spiritual practice. It's the essentials that you need to really start to embody your divinity while on this planet. Check out that guide. And if you are looking for more deep help in actually becoming self-actualized, then visit meterschool.com/call to book your complimentary call to see if working with me in a deeper way is in alignment with who you are in your next phase or journey of life. As always, remember, what you conceive is what you'll receive, what you is what you'll get, and however you feel is what will become real for you. So vibrate higher, and I will chat with you guys next time. Peace, love, and light.